In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, one God. Amen. Some years ago, one of our priests was actively involved with his local cancer care group and told me that he would be bringing a number of cancer sufferers with him to our Christmas vigil service. In anticipating their attendance, I was acutely aware that it was no good speaking to such people in sentimental terms or of nostalgia for childhood and its wonders, whilst even the popular religious images of Christmas, family gatherings, peace, joy and happiness might have a rather hollow ring for people struggling with ill health and facing a limited, or at best an uncertain future. It was important, therefore, that we focused on the real cause for joy which characterizes this feast. From all of the many Christmas carols and hymns, I chose one which for me speaks very powerfully on this theme. It came upon the midnight clear. Probably rather an odd man out as carols go. It's based on St. Luke's account of the angels appearing to the shepherds, but speaks of the sad and lowly plains of a weary world which has suffered 2,000 years of wrong. The angelic song contrasts with the Babel sounds of a world of man at war with man, and offers a message of hope, indeed a love song to those who toil along life's dreary way, under life's crushing load, with painful steps and slow. These sombre images are certainly not quite the traditional secular portrayal of seasonal jollity, but surely very real to relatives mourning dead or injured loved ones in the world's many trouble spots. And my thoughts at this time go out especially to the suffering Christians of Baghdad and Iraq, as well as to the Coptic community in Giza, which has been sorely tried in recent weeks by their uneven treatment at the hands of the Egyptian security forces. This carol was written by Edward Hamilton Sears, a 19th century American pastor. Referring to this carol, one clergyman admitted, "I always feel that, however poor my Christian sermon may be, the reading and singing of this hymn are enough to make up for all deficiencies." And this was probably because Edmund Sears reflected the real world in his carol, where life is short and bitter and sad for many of our fellow men, and at times for us also. Religion should not cushion us from reality, but enable us to face it with understanding and hope. However, Sears's carol is not one of despair, but rather a triumphant hope. His message is that of the angels, that God, in his great love, his overwhelming love for his creation, reaches down to us and meets us where we are, selfish, contentious, shattered, ungrateful, and rebellious. The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. St. Cyril the Great tells us that these words of St. John's Gospel reveal to us a very deep mystery. The common element of humanity is summed up in his person, which is why he was called the last Adam. He enriched our common nature with everything conducive to joy and glory, just as the first Adam impoverished it with everything bringing corruption and gloom. That which is enslaved is liberated in a real sense, and ascends to a mystical union with him who put on the form of a servant, whilst in us it is liberated by an imitation of the union with the one through our kinship according to the flesh. When God became incarnate in the person of our Lord Jesus Christ, he took our human nature as it is, in everything except sin. The Lord enters fully into human suffering. He knows the anguish of family life, the grief of bereavement, the sorrow of betrayal by a friend, the rejection of society, the scorn and delight of his enemies in his downfall, the agony on the cross, and finally, the loneliness of death. St. John Chrysostom reminds us, for even of those very things that seem to be shameful, he himself called that action glory. The paradox of the Creator of all, becoming one of his creatures, is the remarkable message of the Nativity. St. Paul explains to us that although he was in very nature God, he did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on a cross. He is first among the poor, the homeless, the slaves, the exiles, the persecuted, the reviled, despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. This is our God, not a good time God who only comes to us on festive occasions, but a God who will stand beside us when our need is greatest, who will comfort and sustain us as we lurch from crisis to crisis in life. He has come among us to bring us consolation in our affliction, forgiveness in our sin, joy in our sorrow, comfort in our grief, light in our darkness, peace where there is strife, hope in our despair, and ultimately life where there is death. The Apostle St. Paul also points us beyond the present time to a future promise when he says, "I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us." Sears's carol views the whole purpose of God in creation redemption and welcomes the promised age of gold foretold by the prophets, when peace shall over all the earth its ancient splendours fling, and the whole world give back the song which now the angels sing. God bless you, and I wish you a very happy feast of the Nativity.